She cuts her hair, she starts wearing makeup. Who is she? Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am Britt, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you probably should, because I talk about geeky things, and today I'm going to be answering your questions that you asked me almost a year ago. So when I was going to be doing my videos every weekday, I was going to have Wednesdays back to being Ask Britt like I used to when I vlogged every single day, and I never answered those questions because then I went on my little break. So here we go. Let's answer those questions right now. Fawn wants to know what my favorite reptile is. My favorite reptile is known as the blue iguana. I like iguanas just in general. They're this gigantic dragon type lizard. They look prehistoric. My love for iguanas actually kind of started when I was a kid and I watched the episode Putty on the Brain in Power Rangers, and they had an iguana in there and I loved it. And then I found out there was such a thing as a blue iguana, and blue is my favorite color, and then I looked at a blue iguana and they are actually just incredibly beautiful creatures. Kaya-chan has two questions. Kaya-chan wants to know, considering all your time in the pet care industry, what companion animal have you taken care of that you wish you could bring into your zoo? You can always kind of tell when my friends ask me questions because they get kind of specific on my life. So those of you who don't know, I worked in retail for a very long time, and for the majority of that time I worked in the pet care industry, or the pet industry in general. Like I worked at a mom and pop shop pet store, I worked at PetSmart, Petco, and then I also have a lot of animals, and I call it all my zoo. So I have a lot of animals, and if I could add anything to that list in my life, I would probably add a double yellow-headed Amazon parrot. And we never sold one. It was always our store mascot at the mom and pop shop that I worked at, but I did take care of him. And he and I bonded, and I just love him, and I love that species of bird. Any parrot in general, I suppose, but specifically the double yellow-headed Amazon because I like the way they look, and I love saying the name. So there you go. And I just miss Who a lot. That store is closed down now, so I wouldn't be able to go back up to St. Cloud and visit and see Who and love on Who anymore, because he just lives with his owner now, who is no longer in business in the pet care industry. Moving on. Her next question is, you are given the choice to create a new animal. What would you make and what would you call it? I don't know what I would call it, but I had a dream like 5 or 6 years ago about this scorpion that was like super duper colorful, which generally means poisonous in the animal world. So that's fun. And poisonous, not venomous. I'm not mixing up my own words, man. Poisonous frogs are poisonous. They are not venomous. And scorpions are already venomous, so like, that would be interesting, having an animal that's both poisonous and venomous. But it had wings. I would probably call it Hell. But it was a terrifying creature. It was kind of also iridescent. It was very strange. But it was really cool, and I would love to see that in real life. So I can still vividly see it in my memory from that dream, like 5 or 6 years ago. Matt also has two questions. So Matt asks, what non-domesticated / wild animal would I want to have as a pet? Can you see it? I would love to have an elephant. I already have an orca as a pet. He lives in the wild. His name is Mystic. And I have not yet adopted an African elephant. But seriously, I would love to have an African forest elephant in my backyard. So African elephants come in two variations. They're the exact same creature. One is just bigger and one is just smaller. The African bush elephant is the one that's a lot bigger, and the African forest elephant looks pretty much the same thing, just miniature. Anyway, so an African forest elephant I think would be fun to have in my backyard because they're a little bit smaller, probably a little bit easier to take care of. What is some of my dog's weirdest habits? So Cosmo has a lot of very strange habits, but two of my favorite are, and actually not always my favorite. This first one is quite annoying, actually. So he has this habit of every time he eats food, whether that is an actual meal or his dental treat at night or even just a treat, every time he eats, he has to go outside. Whether or not he has to go potty is a completely different story. There have been times where he's literally just gone outside, stepped outside, and stared at me. And I'll shut the door and I'll walk away, and about 2 minutes later, he's barking ferociously at the door. He didn't do anything. He just sat at the door. He just needs to take a step outside after he eats. And that was actually instilled in him because that's how I potty trained him, was every time he ate, I took him outside. And so I think that's just kind of in his head that he eats, he goes outside ever since he was a puppy. And so that can get quite annoying, especially when I give him a dental treat late at night and I'm ready to go to bed, and then he's like, no mom, I still have to go outside still. But of course at night is when he likes to play outside, so it gets really annoying then. His other weird habit is when I'm trying to get him to come up into the bed with me and cuddle, and he is like, okay, oh wait, no. You know, I actually have to play with this toy first. And he'll pick up the toy and start like running around the apartment like a crazy animal, just like having to play with this toy like nobody's business. And I think that's so funny. Every time he does it, I just think it's hilarious. And the fact that I laugh might make it even more obvious that I like it. So he probably does it for that reason. Anyway, here's another fun question. And again, you can tell. And again, I'm going to have to talk about why she's asking this question. But Kay asks, what will you do when you wake up one night to find Van on your pillow, ready to finally make true his threats? Van is right here. My bed is right here. So Van is right next to my bed. And there have just been, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm sorry, buddy. I just scared the crap out of him. So Van is right next to my bed, and it is kind of alarming some nights because he will watch me sleep. And when I say he watches me sleep, I'm not kidding. Like, he is actively like watching me sleep. It was a lot more obvious when I was in my different bed. So when I had my bed from before, so my bed right now is pretty level with his tank. So right now we can kind of play it off as like he's just staring off into space, whatever. But when my bed was lower and lower than his tank, I would seriously wake up sometimes and see him doing this. Actively looking at me while I am sleeping. So I've come up with this idea that he is plotting my demise, slowly but surely plotting my demise, and will one day kill me. Van, he is staring at me with like hatred in his eyes right now. He's still pretty small. When I was a teenager and had my iguana, it might be a little different, even though iguanas are vegetarian, which we'll get to in a minute. Iguanas are vegetarian, so I wouldn't be worried about him eating me necessarily, but, or her, it was a her. Van is still pretty small, so I still think I could probably take him. Though he has bitten me broken skin and it has hurt a lot. I still think I could probably take him. I'm not afraid of my leopard gecko, guys. Only just slightly. And Dylan also has 2 questions. His questions are, what is the most difficult animal to take care of, and why he specifies pet? Because obviously he knows that I'm going to be a smart ass. And I'm going to say an animal that isn't even a freaking pet. That's a really hard question to answer, and only just because I don't know everything. But in my 10 years of working in the pet industry, I have certainly learned a lot about the more difficult animals. And not only that, but every animal kind of has its own weirdness of difficulty, especially when it comes to the reptile world, which is what I'm most familiar with. But so I can kind of give you an idea of a couple of more advanced animals that beginners probably shouldn't take on. Things like chameleons. Chameleons, people love chameleons, and they're super popular. They're the ones that change color, and even though the way that they change color isn't entirely accurate to what they kind of specify in popular culture, they change color mostly to either blend in with their surroundings, which means they can go from green to brown, or they do it to make them look poisonous because they can become these really vibrant colors when they're stressed out. So then other animals be like, ooh, I don't want to eat that. That's probably going to kill me if I eat it, which is the difference between venomous and poisonous, but I'm not going there. So what makes them more difficult? Well, one, they have really sensitive skin. So they're not really handleable, which is something a lot of people are kind of disappointed about because they want to be able to handle their animals. They want to be able to hold them and cuddle with them and pet them. And that's just not something you can really do with a chameleon. 2, they get stressed out if they see their own reflections. Unlike humans, they can't look at their reflection and go, oh, that's what I look like. No, they look at their reflection and go, another one. I have to be strong and stressed out and fight it. You generally have to get them a mesh cage so that they're not in glass. And then that comes with a whole bunch of other things because they are tropical animals, so they need a lot of humidity. So you have to like always have a fog machine on them so that they can stay humidified, because they obviously can't have glass that can kind of hold in the humidity. Plus, and this is the kicker, and this is something that a lot of people don't know about chameleons, they don't look at standing water and go, ooh, I'm gonna drink that. They're like all other reptiles where they look at standing water and they go, oh, I'm going to poop in that. And actually, it's not because they're like, ooh, standing water, I'm gonna go poop in it. It's because water, especially warm water, helps reptiles pass stuff through their digestive systems a little bit easier. So that's why, if you've ever noticed reptiles having poop in their water, that's why, is they're climbing in there to do that. Other reptiles, like my leopard geckos, they will still look at standing water and go, ooh, I can poop in that and I can drink that, which is why you have to keep their water like super clean all the time, because otherwise they're gonna get sick from their own poop. With chameleons, they don't look at standing water and think both. They look at standing water and go, oh, I can poop in that. So you actually have to have running water for them all the time. Waterfall of some sort, or a drip machine, whatever. Either way, you always have to have some kind of moving water, whether it's dripping, whether it's just stuff on leaves. You always have to have something. And so I often recommend always having like a waterfall, like a subtle waterfall in there with your chameleons, that kind of thing. So I would say chameleons are really difficult. The larger reptiles are always pretty difficult, like iguanas, for example. Iguanas are herbivores, so they eat fruits and vegetables and that's it. So it's not like they get this massive size and you can feed them mice. It's like they get to this massive size and you have to spend more money on their food than you spend on your own food. You have to also be careful what you feed them when it comes to fruits and vegetables, that kind of thing, because certain ones are better for them, certain ones are not good for them at all. Some can actually really cause some serious digestive issues, things like that. You know, keeping a large iguana can also be kind of difficult, because you have to make sure you have the right size tank. You have to make sure that they have the right amount of exercise. You have to make sure they have the right kind of light. You have to make sure their tanks are at the right temperature, at the right humidity, because again, they are tropical. There's just so much involvement with the big ones that it's kind of difficult. The biggest one that's easy is like the bearded dragon, because they're desert. I always recommend beginners when it comes to reptiles, go with desert. They're so much easier than tropical. They're a little less fun, but they're a lot easier. So, and stepping outside the reptile world, birds in general are kind of difficult. As silly as that may sound, because a lot of people have had birds over their lives. You can't use Teflon pans when you have birds. You can't have paraffin candles when you have birds. You have to be very careful if you light candles. You have to make sure they're made of soy or of beeswax, which really bothers me because I don't like soy candles. I don't like the way they burn, which is why I'll never own a bird, because I much prefer paraffin or beeswax, but beeswax is so expensive. Sorry, I know a lot about candles. I grew up around candles, so I just know a lot about candles and how they burn. And I have very strange preferences when it comes to those things. So, you know, birds can be kind of difficult too, just because their lungs can be so sensitive that you have to be very, very careful about what you have for them to be breathing in their air. And to be honest, you should be careful about what you're breathing in too, because if it's bad for birds, it's probably bad for you. But I will never not use paraffin candles. They just burn better. Or if they can just make beeswax less expensive. And Dylan's final question, and the final question of this video, is what is your favorite type of bird, either wild or domesticated? Domesticated, I would go with the blue and gold macaw. As far as wild is concerned, the red-tailed hawk. The red-tailed hawk is actually my favorite bird of all. I think a lot of that has to do with animorphs, and my favorite character being Tobias, and the fact that he got stuck in the morph. Spoilers, he got stuck in the morph of a red-tailed hawk, and for some reason I just fell in love with red-tailed hawks because I was in love with and for some reason I fell in love with red-tailed hawks because I fell in love with Tobias. I actually got to see one on the ground the other day. Not the other day, like a week ago, but I was so happy. I love red-tailed hawks, guys. I love them a lot. So there you have it. Those are the answers to the questions that you guys asked me almost a year ago. I don't know how often I'm going to be doing Ask Britt, so I'm not going to ask for questions in the comments below. Just follow me on my social media, which I will have posted in the description. I have them posted in the description of every video. And you can follow me on Twitter or Facebook, and on those I will ask when I'm ready to film another Ask Britt. I will ask a few days in advance, hey, going to film and Ask Britt, why don't you go ahead and ask me questions? So that's how we're going to do Ask Britt from going forward, because I just don't know how often these are going to be available, and I just don't want comments sitting below asking me questions and me not answering them for another year. So let me know in the comments below some of the answers to the questions that were asked to me this week, especially ones about your favorites and what animals you would own, what animals you would create. And don't forget to follow me on Facebook and Twitter, specifically if you want to ask questions in the future. I will see you guys all next time. Bye!